The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Hello, and welcome to Age-Friendly Caledon Conversations. This is a segment series in which we try to provide information about services and supports available to older adults in Caledon, to seniors who live here, and particularly those who want to stay in their home, who want to age in place and keep safe. And to that end, today's subject is about home safety and aging in place. And to help us through that process, we're going to be talking to Gillian Boyd, who is the public educator with the Caledon Fire and Emergency Services. Gillian will be talking today, among other things, about the Older Adult Home Safety Program. Welcome, Gillian, to the program.
Thank you very much.
And so there's the lead, the Older Adult Home Safety Program. Where did this start? In Caledon or elsewhere?
It actually started in Sault Ste. Marie.
Oh.
So the Sault Ste. Marie Fire Department initiated this program and ran it, and it was very successful. So I saw the program and I thought, because of COVID and the challenges that our seniors were facing, amongst other financial impacts, I thought it would be a great program to implement in Caledon, especially we have a lot of seniors who live in isolation and are out in the rural properties of Caledon. So I contacted the Sault Ste. Marie Fire Department and asked if it was okay if we used the program down here in Caledon. So we were very successful with our partnership with the Age 55 Plus strategy coordinator with the town of Caledon, and we put in for a grant through the Seniors Community Fund. So we were able to take the program, pay for the program, and implement the program out in Caledon. So the criteria was that you had to be a Caledon resident, you had to be age 65 and over.
This is in order to participate as a resident, to have you come in and initiate all the inspecting and things you have to do to help us stay in our own home.
Yes.
65 again?
65 plus.
And older.
And
yes.
older. And that was the criteria set out by the grant, the Seniors Community Grant.
I see.
So we know that seniors over the age of 65 are twice as likely to die or be injured in a fire compared to the population at large. At age 75, that is 3 times as much, and 4 times as much when you turn 85. So we knew that we have a vulnerable population age group, that we needed to do something more. We needed to implement a successful program. And knowing that it was successful in Sault Ste. Marie, we wanted to take that into Caledon. So with Caledon, I guess the population in Caledon right now is around 74,000, and the population for seniors over 65 is around 11,000, and we know that that's going to increase. We really wanted to be proactive and make sure that those seniors, especially because we've just gone through the 2.5 years of COVID, we really needed to get into their homes to take a proactive approach and make sure that they had the proper smoke alarms, they had the proper fire protection devices, and that they had someone in their homes looking out for them to make sure that they didn't either injure themselves through an unintentional injury. So through that program and through our collaboration, we were able to implement that program into Caledon.
I'm going to stop you there and just go back and pursue all that, because this is really useful information. And I'm going through all kinds of things in my mind, especially when you talk about over 80 and the increased likelihood of dying of a fire in your home. So let's take someone like me who is a senior who lives in place in my home in Caledon, where I've been for a long time, over 40 years, and I want to have your service in my house, in my home, to find out if I'm doing things properly, if my wife and I are conducting ourselves as we should. So what would happen? What's the first thing I do? I phone the Caledon Fire Department, or I go to Age Friendly Caledon and get the number that way? How do I start?
There's various different ways. You can go through Age Friendly Caledon, or you could go to the Town of Caledon's website, go into the fire department's website, and then there's the self-registration form. So a senior themselves can actually fill that out. A friend, a neighbor, a third party can fill that out, or they can simply just pick up the phone and call.
Okay, let me just talk about registration for a second. I think most residents that I know who are seniors would definitely be willing to register on their own. Mm-hmm. If there's a resident of Caledon who has a son or daughter living elsewhere and is concerned that their parents just simply won't bother, can they do that on behalf of their parents?
Absolutely.
And what will happen then? Will you show up at the home, or will you advise the parents first?
Right, so the actual registration form will come to the fire department, and then from there we will contact the older adults themselves, and we'll schedule a mutual time for us to go in and do our safety wellness check.
Okay, so you come to my home, and we've agreed on the time. I know why you're coming, mm-hmm. and my wife and I are there to participate. What are the things that you do? What's the first mm-hmm. thing you do?
So because we were fortunate with the grant, we were able to purchase a variety of different smoke alarm and carbon monoxide devices. So we had a multitude of battery operated, wireless, interconnected, hardwired smoke alarms. So we were fortunate that through that funding, we were able to not only do a safety check in the home, but we actually installed working smoke and carbon monoxide alarms in the seniors' homes, so that when we left that home, it was protected. Well
wired. This is a matter of interest. In some of these examples that you're talking about, did these homes not have any kind of smoke detector at all, or was it inadequately?
We saw various things in people's homes.
I would imagine you did.
So where people get confused is, even though they have a working smoke alarm, it's 20 years old. Now, smoke alarms, we need to have a working smoke alarm on every level of our home. And when they get past the 10-year mark, they need to be totally replaced. So what we were finding is, yes, people did have smoke alarms, but they were 20, some past, 25 years old.
Do they stop functioning when they're that old?
So even though you will press the test button, they may still function, but in a real fire, they may not activate, or they may be slower to activate. So all smoke alarms should be tested on a monthly basis and totally replaced after 10 years.
You had an effect on me. I'm going to investigate that right away.
Absolutely.
You can't depend on that little bip when you know your battery needs to be replaced. That's not dependable?
When you hear the chirp, it is telling you that the battery needs to be replaced. And the new batteries now, when you hear the chirp, it means that the actual alarm has come to its 10-year mark, and it's not going to work after that. So there's various different sounds. So you should be testing your smoke alarms every month, changing those batteries twice annually, and replacing the whole units after 10 years. But also what we found was the placement of alarms. So sometimes we would go in and carbon monoxide alarms, for example. So carbon monoxide alarms need to be installed outside of sleeping areas. And what we found sometimes was the smoke alarms were not in the correct, or the carbon monoxide alarms were not in the correct place, or we needed to relocate the smoke alarms. So by the time we would go into a home, we may have to replace the actual alarm, or we needed to just replace a battery. So there's various different things that we would come across.
Just the mere thought of that your alarms, and it probably found a lot that are out of date, didn't you?
We have a whole box of alarms that we actually needed to replace.
So that's really even if you couldn't, well, you replace them because of your funding,
Yes.
but even if one has to pay for it themselves, that's a very small expense when you realize what you're doing for yourself.
That's right.
I'm sure. So certainly one of the big issues then is to make sure your smoke alarms are up to date and that the batteries are working. And does the expense of the smoke alarm matter? I look at them in the hardware store and you have $15 smoke alarms and you have $40 smoke alarms.
Right.
Does that make a difference?
We knew that because it's an older adult program, we wanted to make sure that they had the interconnected alarms. So if one alarm activates, they all will activate. And that will give the senior the early warning signal, so it doesn't matter where they are in the home, they will hear that signal, they'll know that the smoke alarms are activating and that they can leave. So some seniors are on a fixed income, some folks out there are on fixed incomes, so they're trying to figure out, will I buy a $15 alarm or will I buy a $60 alarm? All alarms have been tested, so they will work for you, but for the best added protection and for the older adult population, we wanted to make sure that they had interconnected combination alarm, which means that you have smoke and carbon monoxide detection on all levels of the home.
And this interconnection doesn't have to be hardwired. This can be battery operated?
It has to be hardwired.
Okay, so that's a fairly significant bit of a construction in the house, isn't it?
It is, and because we are not able to do that, we were able to use other devices like wireless connections.
Okay, so that it is possible without ripping up the wall and wireless connection would mean you plug it into an electrical outlet, right? And so it would be by the electrical system in your house would connect it?
No, it's actually just on the ceiling. That you can seal it, it's just wirelessly, so it's not connected through the electrical
like Wi-Fi
system at all.
That's really very useful information. I wasn't aware that was even available, and I'm sure I can't be the only senior who doesn't know that. There must be more of it like me. So clearly smoke detectors are a very major issue, and whether you put them in yourself or whether you benefit from the funding that your fire department has, then pardon me, it's certainly worth having them in. I really wish you're going to have to come back and do another program here, Jillian, because there are more things than just the smoke detector, which basically is all we covered. But and we've got just a few seconds left, and am I correct in assuming that in addition to the smoke detectors and other elements, you check the whole house for other elements that might be dangerous and potentially causing a fire?
Absolutely. We would take a look at any heating sources, make sure that there's no combustible material next to any heating sources. But also another important message is to make sure that you have a home escape plan. So all your exits in your home, your doors, your windows are accessible. Because in a fire, you have less than 2 minutes to escape. In a fire, you have deadly smoke, carbon monoxide. So as soon as those smoke alarms activate, you have to get out of your house. So it's important to have a home escape plan and follow that home escape plan. Get outside, call 911, and never go back inside for any reason. Wait outside until
we have to have you back, Jillian. So smoke detectors and a home escape plan is certainly one that should be in the top of the list for every senior. Welcome back. I'm Ken Weber, your host, and this is the second half of our segment on home safety and aging well in place. To that end, our guest today is Geraldine Aguirre, who is the new CEO. And by the way, congratulations, you are the new CEO of Caledon Community Services, a wonderful organization. So you must be very proud to be in this new role. Geraldine will be talking to us today about the transportation program that CCS has. And I'm going to start by asking you about a bus that I never had a ride on, but I see all the time in Caledon, the CCS bus. Tell me what that bus is for and how it works.
So the Caledon Community Services Transportation Program, Ken, is a lifeline for many people in Caledon. It started off as being transportation for seniors primarily, and for medical rides and any appointments in the hospitals or doctor's appointments. And now that program has grown to really take aging in place to the broadest extent possible. So we transport people that are 8 years old and over to things like language instructions, recreation programs, medical appointments, grocery shopping, visiting with friends, going to rec programs, all kinds of appointments that are so critical to enhance the quality of life of all people in Caledon.
I'm sure the bus is intended primarily for within Caledon, is it not?
It is primarily within Caledon, but we do rides to transfer points and to specific hospitals outside of Caledon. So the beauty of our transportation program is it involves volunteers as well. And the volunteers are they're a diamond in the rough because they help us extend our buses who are transporting 12 to 14 people at a time. Volunteers will transport one-to-one people in Caledon to go to longer destinations like Toronto, for example, and they don't have to do a lot of transfer points. But volunteers are post-COVID; they haven't really returned, and I'm going to, put a plug in here, a shameless plug to
absolutely. Say a little bit more. You need volunteers.
We absolutely need volunteers to help us with all of our programs, and most particularly with our transportation program.
And I would imagine most particularly with older adults too, would it be?
Absolutely. Our older adults in Caledon are those individuals that oftentimes quality of life is impacted by things like isolation, loneliness, a lack of companionship, and a lack of people just to spend some time with in the home. So getting people out of their homes, getting seniors out of their homes to attend programs like our health and wellness program or other valuable programs that other organizations offer in Caledon are just not possible without our door-to-door service with our buses. So we would pick them up right at their door and drop them off right at their destination.
So you said buses, so there's more than one bus.
There's about 12.
There's 12 buses.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. No wonder I see them in Caledon all over.
Absolutely.
So, but I'll come back to registration in a minute because that's an important issue. But I just want to let you build a little further the idea that the notion that you mentioned of volunteers. COVID, you say you lost because of COVID.
Yes, I mean, with
a lot of organizations lost volunteers, and your transportation program did in a serious way.
Absolutely. I mean, at that time, COVID, a lot of the volunteers that we have are seniors, and the public health guideline at the time was everybody to stay home and stay safe, and all of that social distancing. Now, post-pandemic, the world is kind of returning into in-person interaction again, and I think the public feeling is that it might be an unsafe situation, and so maybe that's why volunteers haven't returned, because you have to transport people in close proximity in your own vehicle.
Who may be ill.
Who may be ill, right? And then cost is another piece as well, right? The cost of gas and using your own vehicle. But for those volunteers who like to drive for us, we have a fleet car that's available for them to drive. If they don't want to use their own personal vehicle and they want to give us the gift of time, they can certainly come and register and drive our vehicle. So there's no out-of-pocket expenses for volunteers.
Well, that's very useful information. And I would imagine that a senior who is licensed and able to drive comfortably would certainly be welcome as a volunteer. This is not just for younger people.
100%. The majority of our volunteer drivers are seniors.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Let me talk, so we've made the official plug for volunteers.
Yes, we did.
Absolutely has to happen. It really, an organization as useful as yours and as big as yours, it has to have volunteers, doesn't it, to keep going?
In many programs.
Yeah. registering for the transportation program, what's the process there?
So it's very easy. You can do it online, or you can give our organization a call, and you'd ask to speak to the transportation department and ask to be registered as a client. If you are a TransHelp eligible individual, meaning you use a wheelchair, you have a mobility device, you have a visible or invisible disability, you'll still call Caledon Community Services, because not that many people know, but we are the TransHelp vendor in Caledon. So if they were to call TransHelp, they would be redirected to call Caledon Community Services to move that registration process forward.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's really quite easily done. I mean,
Very easy.
And for a senior who is computer averse, they can telephone you.
They can phone. We've got a fantastic team in the office, and we get always a lot of customer satisfaction comments saying how easy it is and how those CSRs walk every single person that calls. If online is not your thing, the phone call is just as effective.
It's nice to know that people still answer the phone.
Yes, they
There's
do.
a live human at the other end. Then for the transportation system, if I were a user, I could make the call myself.
Yep.
If I had a caregiver, or if a member of the family who knows that I need a pickup, can that be done by someone other than the person being driven?
Absolutely. So they can get anyone to help them register, and once they're a registered client, then they'll be issued a client number, and they'll just call with the name and number and request, here's the time I'd like to be picked up, here's my destination, here's the time that I'd like to be there. And typically we ask, for 2 days, if you can book 2 days in advance, but more and more now our routing system is allowing us to book 1 day ahead, and even sometimes same day.
Really? That's that's pretty remarkable. So I'm going to get a number if I register,
Yep, you'll get a
and
client
that will
number.
enable me to be picked up and driven to. And now the other half of driving someone to an appointment means also driving them home.
Right.
And so the schedule has to be worked out, doesn't it?
Yeah, you'll have to kind of request a to and from, and then a second return ride. So let's say you want to go to your doctor's appointment or a hospital appointment, grocery shopping, and you think, I'd like to be there by 10. It takes about an hour or so to get there, half an hour. So you'd say, I'd like to be picked up at X time, I'd like to be at No Frills at this time, come back and get me in an hour. Right?
Yes.
And then we'll schedule a return ride.
So that's it. So I would imagine such a thing as grocery shopping, you've got pretty good control most of the time over that. But when you say a doctor's appointment, we all know what it's like to go to the doctor's office or to the hospital for something.
Yeah.
You really never know what the time will be when you're picked up.
Yeah.
So there must be a flexibility element in there, is there?
There's a little bit. When you're transporting 14 people all the time, back and forth, pick up, drop off, we say there's about a half an hour flexibility window. So if you're running late, you just have to call our dispatch person, and the routing team will do everything they can to accommodate you.
So you may actually be picked up by another driver than the one that took you there.
There's multiple buses doing pickups and drop-offs. It is an art. It is an art and science when you look at the scheduling system.
It's all, but yes, a very complicated thing, but very worthwhile.
It very is. It's GPS times 100.
And yes, it really is.
Yeah.
So other programs then for aging in place in the community. I read your newsletters. I see all the kinds of things you're doing. Tell us some more about what are particular for older adults that you make available.
Thanks for asking that. I'm so proud of the spectrum of programs. So they say older adults now is 55 plus. Right? So anybody 55 plus, and those 55 might not even consider themselves an older adult. So we've got programs that are volunteer driven where they can lead a group on their own. We have a health and wellness program that is operated at 8 sites across Caledon, and at the Exchange, which is another location of ours where we have another set of programs. We have assisted living, which is PSWs in the home for those seniors who still want to stay at home but need a bit of help in terms of activities of daily living, maybe feeding, showering, bathing, those kinds of activities.
Is this in addition to the Ontario Health Program, or is this comes from CCS?
This comes from CCS, and that program is funded by Ontario Health.
I see.
Right, the assisted living program. And we also have a transitional care center that's a hidden gem. It's in Alton. And if you are going to the hospital and are being discharged but don't feel safe to come home, you can definitely go to that program. We also have a respite program, and our respite program is for caregiver relief. So if you're caring for a loved one and you want to go out for dinner, you want to kind of go on a trip for an overnight, contact us for the Transitional Care Center. We'll help you with that.
So you're the caregiver who's getting the relief, but you're still enabling the older person to stay in the home.
Exactly.
Where they are. That's really very valuable. Now, the transitional health program, the transitional
Care
sites
center,
program, that's interesting. I wasn't aware that existed. How does that work?
So that is kind of an early discharge program from the hospital. So if you're in the hospital and you want to go home, or you're discharged home, but you're thinking, oh, I've had knee surgery, I'm not feeling confident, I live alone, I'd like a couple more days of some care. They have to discharge you out of the hospital, but you can be discharged to our center where we have 24/7 PSW support and assistance, and you get fed as well, and there's games and all kinds of activities for seniors to convalesce.
Goodness. It seems to me that if you're, just living in Caledon, but let's talk about older adults because that's what I'm doing now, you're going to be the best friend. The CCS is simply a wonderful companion for anyone who wants to live in their own home, and it's getting to be a bit of a struggle because they're older. One last quick thing, people who need that little bit of physical support, by that I mean somebody will come and change a light bulb or do that. Do you have access? Do you have people who send, or can you put us into touch with someone who does that?
Yeah, we don't have a home help program. There are other organizations that might have that program, but if it's minor things like that, and if they have a PSW that's already assisting them with that, that's within the scope of what the PSW can do. I mean, they're not going to build bathrooms for you, but they can certainly change light bulbs. Yeah.
This has been most instructive and most helpful. Geraldine Aguirre is the CEO of Caledon Community Services, newly in the position, and I hear very welcome. It's very appreciate your coming here today. I think we could probably talk about this an awful lot longer too if we had more time. And you clearly know how your system works. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you, viewers, for joining us today. Please tune in to additional age-friendly Caledon Conversations segments airing on Rogers TV and available on YouTube. For more information on these and other programs designed to help Caledon residents age well and in place, please reach out to Age Friendly Caledon by phoning 311, emailing adults at, do that one again, emailing adults55@caledon.ca, or visiting our website online at www.caledon.ca/adult55. These will all be on your screen if they're not already. And you can also join the monthly newsletter from Age Friendly Caledon. And certainly, based on the interview we've just had, you'll want to be in touch with Caledon Community Services. Thank you very much.
Call the Rogers TV Viewer Response Line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
Hi, I'm Angel Morgan, host of Raising Energy on Rogers TV. Join us each week as we are back in the studio doing live psychic readings. Check out rogerstv.com for airtimes.
Today, I helped a parent feed their family by connecting them to a food program.
Today, I helped someone connect with mental health supports.
Today, I helped a couple struggling to pay their bills access financial aid.
Every day, 211 navigators connect Canadians to critical government and community programs and services.
211.